Well, good morning, everybody, and thanks for joining us. We want to take this time and give you the latest updates on Hurricane Helene as it closes in on North Carolina. This is an unusually dangerous storm that threatens to bring heavy rain and potentially catastrophic flooding tonight and tomorrow for central and particularly western North Carolina. When tropical weather crosses into our mountains, it can be deadly. Just a few years ago, Tropical Storm Fred shocked our mountain regions with torrential rain, sweeping away homes, bridges, and lives. With Helene, this can happen again. And just last week, we were reminded of the unpredictability of severe weather in North Carolina as a coastal storm brought 20 plus inches of rain on parts of southeastern North Carolina. With Hurricane Helene, we have to be clear here. Heavy rains and winds are coming. Beware and prepare. Travel will be dangerous. Flooding is likely, and we are preparing for unexpected conditions. Our thoughts are with our friends in Florida and other southern states that are being hit first, and our priority here is to protect lives and manage the impact of the storm on our communities here in our state as it arrives. Helene is forecast to bring more than a foot of rain to parts of western North Carolina, which will likely cause significant flash flooding, landslides, damaging debris flows, slope failures across steep terrain, and river flooding. Even areas that don't typically experience it may see flooding. Cities like Charlotte and Asheville could see flash flooding despite not being in the storm's direct path. To prepare, all North Carolinians should tune into weather alerts today and through the weekend. Tropical storm force winds are possible across western North Carolina later today and into Friday. With already saturated soils from earlier rains, falling trees could cause widespread power outages. As of this morning, there are about 14,000 estimated power outages statewide. There is the potential for tornadoes with this storm system as well, which can quickly spin up with a little warning. This storm path is wide, and its impacts will be felt far from the center of the storm. North Carolina State Emergency Operations Center is communicating with local leaders and emergency management teams across our state. I've activated 175 soldiers and airmen from the North Carolina National Guard, and we've deployed North Carolina swiftwater rescue teams and urban search and rescue teams to assist in the response and to save lives. Our Department of Transportation is standing ready to respond to road closures and repair the damage. We've spoken to Duke Energy and know that line workers are standing by to restore power. Yesterday, I declared a state of emergency to help move supplies like water, food, and medicine, heavy equipment, and to support agricultural operations before the storm arrives. If you do not need to travel, please stay off the roadways, especially in the foothills and in the mountains. Do not drive through floodwaters. We have lost too many North Carolinians who have driven around barricades and into floodwaters, including one just last week in Brunswick County. You cannot tell the depth of water just by looking at it from your vehicle. Turn around, don't drown. If you are told to evacuate, get out of the danger zone. Make a plan now to stay with friends or family if you are in an area that could likely be flooded. And I think that there are a number of these in the mountains that could be this way. Please stay informed to protect yourself and your family. Today I'm joined by Emergency Management Director Will Ray, our Secretary of the Department of Public Safety, Eddie Buffalo, the Adjutant General of the North Carolina National Guard, Major General Todd Hunt, Chief Operating Officer of the North Carolina Department of Transportation, Chris Peoples, the commander of the North Carolina State Highway Patrol, Colonel Freddie Johnson, FEMA Field Coordinating Officer Craig Levy. Our American Sign Language interpreters are Brian Tipton and Mark Lineberger. Behind the scenes, our Spanish language interpreters are Yasmin Mativier and Tamara Cabrera. At this time, I'll ask Director Ray for his update. Director Ray?
Thank you, Governor Cooper, and good morning, everyone. As the governor said, North Carolina has begun to experience the impacts of Helene, which will continue into Saturday. The impacts of Helene should not be ignored, and all North Carolinians should remain informed, have a plan in place to protect your family, and should take this storm seriously. As Governor Cooper said, the primary threats to our state include heavy rainfall, life-threatening flash flooding, damaging landslides, debris flows, and riverine flooding. Though the primary impacts will be to the mountains and foothills, central and eastern North Carolina can expect heavy rainfall, severe thunderstorms, and possible severe weather such as tornadoes. Today, western North Carolina can expect to see multiple rounds of showers and storms continue. Significant flash floods are likely into tonight prior to the arrival of Helene's rain bands. Tropical storm warnings have been issued from Charlotte to the west, and areas of western North Carolina will receive 9 to 14 inches of rainfall, with amounts up to or in excess of 20 inches possible in some locations. Yesterday, the state of North Carolina requested an emergency declaration from FEMA to provide direct federal assistance for work and services to save lives and protect property. That request was approved this morning by the White House, and also yesterday, the FEMA Federal Coordinating Officer and a FEMA Incident Management Assistance Team from Region 7, our partners in Kansas, arrived to assist us here at the State Emergency Operations Center. There are currently 18 local states of emergencies declared, and we know that that number will continue to go up as of this morning. There are 3 shelters open in western North Carolina, and our North Carolina Emergency Management Human Services branch remains in close coordination with our partners across the state and actively planning for the potential increased shelter support as conditions dictate. The North Carolina State Emergency Operations Center has deployed 16 swiftwater rescue teams and added 3 additional swiftwater rescue teams from our colleagues in New York, Indiana, and Illinois through the Emergency Management Assistance Compact, a resource sharing mutual aid system between states. Additionally, our North Carolina urban search and rescue teams are at the ready to assist should any landslides or damage to structures occur, with 3 North Carolina task forces currently on state orders. Many local jurisdictions across our state have offered their emergency resources to assist impacted communities. In North Carolina, we operate under a whole-of-community approach to disaster management, and the close collaboration between local communities and the sharing of resources further solidifies that approach. The North Carolina Office of State Fire Marshal has activated fire and rescue rostering system to identify additional resources and deploy where needed. These resources include fire marshals, firefighting engine companies, ladder companies, and the State Fire Marshal Swiftwater team. The State Emergency Response Team continues to monitor dams across the state, along with our partners in the Department of Environmental Quality, to ensure that residents are notified in the event of an issue. As the governor said, please avoid traveling if at all possible, particularly in the mountains and foothills. If you must travel, please visit drivenc.gov to check roadway status. This website is updated regularly by the North Carolina Department of Transportation. Please do not drive through water and respect the barricades and road closures. For those that are in flood-prone areas, please make sure you're informed, that you have a plan of action to quickly evacuate if necessary, and that you're receiving information from reliable sources, such as local emergency management offices and the National Weather Service. Enable emergency alerts on your mobile phone to make sure you receive those life-saving notifications. If you know of a threat, you can take action. Flooding may occur outside of areas that normally flood with the forecasted rainfall totals we are seeing. North Carolina's utility partners are also engaged here at the state EOC and are planning for restoration operations statewide. In many areas, trees may fall due to already saturated soils and cause widespread power outages. Please treat all downed power lines as energized and do not approach them. If you must run a generator or use a grill for outdoor cooking, please do so away from your home, as carbon monoxide is colorless and odorless. The North Carolina Flood Inundation Mapping and Alert Network, or FIMAN, provides access to the state's nearly 600 river flood gauges. Visit fiman.nc.gov and sign up for alerts for the gauges closest to your home or your community. The lingering impacts of Tropical Storm Debbie and potential Tropical Cyclone 8 remain. Our recovery team is maintaining support to those impacted local jurisdictions in central and eastern North Carolina. Damage assessments continue and recovery resources are being provided to those impacted communities. Remember to utilize 911 only for emergencies. If you need general information regarding the storm, please call 211 and leave emergency lines open. Remain alert, informed, and check on your neighbors and those in your community who may need assistance. During a disaster or major event, we are stronger together and make for more resilient communities. Finally, I want to acknowledge and thank those that have left their families and already worked long hours, responded to emergency calls for assistance, and have staffed emergency operations centers and incident command posts across our state to keep all North Carolinians safe. We're fortunate to have such dedicated and professional public safety personnel in our state. Thank you. Governor.
Thank you, Director Ray. Anyone with questions can come to the microphone over here to the right. Any of us are available for questions that you might have. Laura?
Laura Leslie, WRAL. Question for you. You mentioned Hurricane Fred, and we remember that under Hurricane Fred, there were deaths, for example, out in western North Carolina, and there was frustration expressed by some of the local leaders out there about the pace of recovery and the pace of relief and aid. What has changed since then, or what have we learned in the interim that might make things better if there is such a terrible outcome this time?
We learned lessons from Fred. I know that we have a lot of our equipment and supplies that are spaced throughout western North Carolina, and I may call up Director Ray to address this specifically. I also think it's important for people where we expect flooding to go somewhere else, to make sure that you and your families are safe in order to avoid lives. We had to come in with state recovery because, for example, a lot of the bridges that were out in western North Carolina were not public bridges. They were private bridges. And so we helped provide funding to rebuild a lot of that. And when you're in the mountains, just construction and repair work is much more difficult and expensive. I'm concerned about our mountain areas. Seeing the amount of rain that's already on the ground and this storm coming, I've seen firsthand the devastation that it can cause. I've spent many days in western North Carolina getting to these places that were destroyed. So we want people to be careful, to move out if they think that they may be in trouble. And I know that there are a lot of resources on the ready to, number one, to save lives. Director Ray, if you want to respond to that as well. I'll start you over here.
Thanks for the question, Laura. I think, as you referenced, there are a couple of benchmarks for this event in western North Carolina, and certainly Tropical Storm Fred is one that is present in a lot of people's minds. But I do want to note and take an opportunity as we look at potential rainfall amounts and a potential threat picture. Francis and Ivan are also some of the reference points that we have. And so I don't think we can overstate some of our concern about potential impact in that area of the state and why we continue to message, and many of our local jurisdictions in that part of the state continue to message the importance of evacuations, if possible, out of those areas that we know are susceptible to significant flooding. As the governor said, in the post-Tropical Storm Fred recovery package, there were a number of programs both that dealt with private roads and bridges, because we know that is an issue where some of the federal and state support is not usually, those are not usually eligible. There's also been a number of programs focused on, from our perspective, on long-term recovery and how we deal with some of the major infrastructure challenges in that part of the state, or some of the some of our rivers or other waterways and addressing some of the debris challenges that have built up over the years. I think the other thing we've done, and a number of our counties have also taken some proactive steps on the mitigation front to add some alert and warning systems in place, to add additional river gauges out there, again, because we know forecasts and information from our river gauges in the mountains, water travels much, much differently. The impact is significant in a different way, and so the ability to get that timely information and that analysis on the front end is going to be critical.
Adam?
Does the state have enough resources to handle both the recoveries going on at PTC8 and Debbie and the upcoming kind of threat from this? I guess where is the sort of allocation going?
Debbie, or the Cyclone 8 that's in Brunswick?
Cyclone 8 and also sort of...
Yeah. Yes, we do, but we are concerned about FEMA funding and the fact that although this continuing resolution will keep the funding levels the same, we're seeing across the country significant impacts, and there's going to be a substantial amount of money needed. So I'm concerned that Congress has got to act to make sure that funding is available here. But the Department of Transportation has worked very hard in getting roads back up in those areas. We still have some road closures in Brunswick County, and we have the resources that are ready to go and deal with this out west. I do think that with the potential of not getting federal funding in eastern North Carolina, that we may want to go to the North Carolina General Assembly for a package that would help there, that would also help what we believe is coming for the foothills in western North Carolina right now. Yes.
Jamise Price with ABC 11. How is the DOT preparing when we're talking flash flooding and the possible impacts? What are you guys doing right now to prepare for the flash flooding?
One thing, we've got a lot of people who are activated and on the ready. Contractors that do this kind of work are on the ready, so that as soon as the storm moves away and as soon as water moves away, they can go and check bridges, they can go and begin repair work, but I'll let Mr. Peoples address that directly.
Thank you, Governor. He said it well. We've looked at how we've responded in the past and made sure that we, understand all the lessons learned from past storms. So we've started looking at areas in the western part of the state where there may be issues where we could, from experience, predict that there would be flooding. And we've staged equipment on either side of that in certain counties so that we're ready and so we don't get cut off from being able to respond quicker. We've engaged all our contract partners and our consulting partners in case we have slides, in case we have bridge washouts, culvert washouts, if we lose pavement. So we feel like we're as ready as we can be. We'll get out and assess as soon as it's safe for our people to go out and assess. And then we'll try to respond as quickly as possible.
Thank you. And we've experienced a number of storms over the last, month or two. There is a level of fatigue when it comes to this. And you guys have stressed how important it is for us to be prepared and to take this storm seriously. What do you say to North Carolinians who are dealing right now with just a lot of fatigue? They're exhausted.
We know that storms are more frequent and intense now because of climate change. I think it's important, though, in order to save lives and to protect property, that we do things that can get us ready so that the damages aren't as great as they could be if we were not prepared. And I think people in North Carolina are resilient. They understand this. People in eastern North Carolina particularly see it a lot. People in Brunswick County are working hard to recover. We're helping them to assess damages now, and that can all continue to go on. But now we have our people ready to move to the central and western part of the state to deal with that. It unfortunately is a fact of life right now. I think also as we repair and rebuild, we need to keep resiliency in the top of our minds and making sure that we are trying to prepare for the next storm that we are sure will come. Adam.
This is probably for the representative from FEMA. Could we just get kind of an update on where the disaster relief fund is right now, and maybe any kind of projections or thoughts as to what this storm could do to that fund? The FEMA Disaster Relief Fund, federal.
Thanks for the question. The disaster relief fund right now, the funding will not impact our response to this storm. The funds in that fund, we have fenced off for life-saving and life-sustaining activities to assure that those activities can continue through the rest of hurricane season and until the disaster relief fund can be refunded.
How much money is in that fund right now? Or what's that pot? Like,
I don't know the exact amount of money in the pot at the moment. That money is constantly fluctuating, and there are multiple states and multiple incidents that are being supported from that funding. So any number I would give you would be out of date right after I said it.
Mary Smith here with CBS 17. Governor Cooper, you mentioned that we're already seeing power outages. Can you talk about where we're seeing those?
Will, do you have that?
So thank you for the question. Right now, right before we walked in here, we were at about 14,000 statewide. Again, we are starting to see a slow tick up, as we would expect in western North Carolina, really in the areas right now that are receiving more of the impact. So Avery, McDowell, Buncombe, some of those areas. We can follow up with you right after and give you kind of the specifics if that would be helpful. But again, we are anticipating significant outages, particularly in the western part of our state, as we look at the possible wind speeds as well. That's also, I think, a concern. Again, we've talked a lot about the amount of water and the amount of rainfall and what that could do based on some of the terrain in western North Carolina. But as our weather team has shared, the potential for tropical storm force winds as far east as into and around the Charlotte metro area, I think, also raises some level of concern and what that could do for power outages in the western part of the state.
Laura?
One off topic, if I could. We learned yesterday that the Lieutenant Governor's office, some people have resigned. Are you concerned at all about the operations of the office, and will it be impacted in the duties that it needs to carry out?
I don't think that there are many duties there that office is assigned, so I don't think that would have any impact. Do we have someone on line? Okay, we can take first question of someone calling in.
So right now we have shelters open in Avery, Buncombe, and McDowell counties, and we know again that Avery is looking at some additional locations as well as the other two. Those censuses are relatively low, but do anticipate them starting to go up. But right now those are the primary locations.
Others?
Davenport with the Smoky Mountain News. Please ask your question.
Hi, Governor. You've obviously been to Haywood County and to Kent a number of times in the wake of flooding in 2021. Has North Carolina done enough in the way of resiliency to prevent casualties in these types of instances? And do you view that as more of a state role or a federal role?
So I think we all need to work on making sure we are more resilient to these storms. The mountains, with the beauty of them, I love going out there, and it's clear that people enjoy living there, but there are issues that can be more treacherous when severe weather comes. And I know that in Canton that the severe flooding that they experienced was truly catastrophic. They have worked hard to build back. I know they are getting ready. I've been talking with local officials. I'm going to be making some more today to see what their state of readiness is. I think it's clear that we all need to work together to do more, to be ready to save lives, and we have made a lot of changes. We now have a lot of indicators of when river flooding is going to occur, and keeping an eye on gauges and better communication. When we build back, we're trying to fortify those structures in order to anticipate weather that might come. So there's a lot of work that's being done, but this weather is going to continue to come at us, so we need to just continue that work. And I'm certainly we're going to continue to work hard for what's happening in Western North Carolina, but I'm certainly praying for all of them, particularly over the next 48 hours. Okay, I think that's the last question we have today, and thank you for being here.